Good evening, and thank you for having me. I would like to thank Jim Parmentier and all the folks here at Maine's First Ship for inviting me to come up and speak about something for which I can speak almost all day, but I will try not to do that tonight. We'll try and be somewhat succinct here about a little bit of the history of the ship and the restoration. As Jim said, I also would like to thank Captain J.B. Smith for graciously putting me up at his house for the last couple of nights and having a great time looking around this beautiful area that you guys have. And congratulations to all of you for getting the first part of the COI for Virginia. As he said, I'm the Director of Maritime Preservation and Operations and the Captain of Mayflower II. They do let me drive once in a while, and it's a lot of fun to be able to do so. Let's see here. So, Mayflower II was built in 1957 in Brixham, England, and sailed across the Atlantic on her own bottom to Plimoth Patuxet Museums in 1957. It was an interesting, down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the man with the pilgrim hat. That's Sir Warwick Charlton from England. And the other guy is Henry Hornblower, who started Plymouth Plantation in 1947. And about 1955, they had always wanted to have a replica ship. And he started having a replica ship drawn. In the upper right-hand corner is ruh-roh.
Baker?
Thank you. William Avery Baker from Hingham, Massachusetts. And he had drawn the ship. They heard about the Mayflower project going on in England, so Henry Hornblower went over there, met with Sir Warwick Charlton, and so Baker provided the plans, and Charlton did the Mayflower project, and wanting it to sail to America. It was given to America as a gift of appreciation for our help and support during World War II. And that's how that connection happened. Was, again, the plans were already being drawn. The Mayflower project started. Charlton had served with in the Africa campaign, and when he sailed back after the war, he read of Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford. And that got him the idea. I always make a joke, I don't have this documented, but I always make the joke that when, we all know that America got involved in World War II a little bit late in England and in Africa. But I like to think that they were very happy that we brought American whiskey and showers to Africa. And so that's what it was on his way home from the war that works. Here we are in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1957. You can see lower left there, we had Tricky Dick Nixon and thousands of people on the shoreline to greet Mayflower when it got there. In the lower right is our 33-foot shallop boat, which was built in Plymouth, Massachusetts to go meet Mayflower when it got here. And we still have that, and it was also restored. This restoration that I'm talking about took place at Mystic Seaport Museum between 2015 and 2020. It was a 5-year, $11 million restoration to the ship. Again, a wooden ship coming up on 60 years old. Even with some regular and routine maintenance, it was just time for a major rebuild. And of course, you can see 1620 to 2020, the whole idea was 2020 was our 400th anniversary of the ship's arrival. And all sorts of events that got canceled. That's what we were shooting for. And how does it start? You guys built the ship by hand, and I commend all of you for building this ship with volunteers only. So for a restoration of, again, when it was coming up on 60 years old, it started out in 2014 with the discovery process, figuring out, well, how bad is it? A lot of exploratory surgery was required, what I call it, in the discovery process, to figure out how bad it was, how much it was going to cost, then present our findings to the board, and it was up to them to determine whether they were going to restore the ship or whether they were going to just build a brand new one. As many of you know who might have restored any kind of a historic home, it's much easier to build from scratch than having to take things apart a little bit at a time and then put them back together. You're essentially doing the job twice. But it became evident to us, and very important, thankfully for me, from the board, that Mayflower II was becoming historic in her own right. And so throughout this process, our idea was to get the ship on the National Register of Historic Places, which we were able to do in 2020, and bringing forward the 1957 vessel as, again, historic in its own right, to preserve and keep going. How do you find, especially these days, how do you find people, shipwrights that have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to even take on a large shipbuilding or restoration project? And that was certainly as important to me as the work itself on the ship. It was fantastic. We had a lot of people come in, kids, younger people come in from IRIS, the International Yacht Restoration School in Newport, Rhode Island, where we had some of the older folks teaching these younger folks and bringing that knowledge along for the next generation so it would not be lost. It's a very large ship. Mayflower is 129 feet long from the bowsprit to the boomkin. Because of our time period, we built a full support structure that held the ship up and allowed us to maintain the proper shape of the vessel while being able to take it apart in many different areas at the same time, so that we could have 4 or 5 different teams working, taking it apart in different places without sacrificing or losing the shape of the vessel. We also had a company digitally scan the ship throughout the whole process, so we have the whole ship digitally scanned. We do still have Baker's plans, and the Plimoth Patuxet Museum owns the plans, but they are housed at the Hart Nautical Collection at MIT. This was fun in 2016. I guess 2026 we had a real winter. Well, 2016 was, I think, the last time we had any kind of winter at all. And the people we bought this shelter from were from Florida. I don't think they had a good couple of days there putting this up. And there, that's the finished shelter. That's what became known as the big mailbox, the big white mailbox. And it could be seen all the way all along Mystic. Anyone who's been to Mystic Seaport Museum? Yeah. So from the highway bridge, it looks like a big mailbox. Right now, my museum sold that building to Mystic Seaport after the restoration. They put it up a year and a half ago, and Susan Constant from the Jamestown is in there and has been in there for a year and a half now. Still got another 8 or 9 months to go. And she's 30 years old and going through a 30-year refit, which is about 5 or 6 million. Where do you get wood these days to be able to do a large restoration? This is white oak, Quercus alba. That these logs were sourced from Kentucky, from Berea College down in Kentucky, And one of my favorite parts of the restoration was actually going out in the woods early on in 2014 and marking trees that we wanted to take from tree to sea. It's not like we could go to Home Depot and just pick up some of the wood that we wanted, as most of you are well aware. This is wood. We were also, what you're seeing with the white oak, the Quercus alba, this is Quercus robur. This was sourced from the Royal Danish Forestry Service. They have been managing their forests for 250, 300 years. You know, in America, we can't look past the profits of the next quarter. So we were able to get a lot of very good white oak domestically from Kentucky, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Virginia. But this wood, this is all under the waterline wood that only the fish see. And this wood came in from Denmark, 3 inches thick. Most of it was over 2 feet wide and 35 to 38 feet long with no knots or defects. And so that's a Quercus robur, which is a European white oak that the ship would have originally been built with. Now it has both types. And we also have live oak. Spent a lot of time down in Louisiana and Georgia. All of the curved pieces down low, the naval timbers, and a lot of our floor timbers down at the turn of the bilge, and all of our knees, our hanging knees and lodging knees, are all live oak or Quercus virginiana. That's the levee. The Mississippi is right over that bank. And here, many of you might know Quentin Snidecker in the white beard. He was the director of Mystic Seaport shipyard and my counterpart for managing this overall project. We got real lucky in Belle Chase, Louisiana. The power company came in on a fellow's land and was cutting down a bunch of live oak that had been in this gentleman's family for generations. He first called, it's a small community as you know, he first called the Constitution, and they were just finishing up their latest restoration work and didn't need any live oak. So Margarita Desi, the curator up there, said, well, you should call Mayflower. They need some wood. So you can see the curves there. And these are some of the hanging knees that we use, the natural curvature. For those of you who haven't worked on Virginia, just taking a wide piece of wood and cutting it across the grain, you lose all the structural integrity of that piece, where if you're using the natural grain and curvature, you're retaining the strength of the wood. Now, in this restoration, there was a lot of rot in the ship, but it wasn't in the knees. The knees we found were all fastened with iron. And what happened, as the iron rusted over 50 or 60 years, it expands and it blew apart the knees rather than rotting them. So one of the things that we did during the restoration is everything we could above the water line has been fastened with bronze. This is my son Dylan.
Right here, I'd really like to highlight some of the parts of the ship that we tried to save. We tried to save as much as the old parts of the ship as possible. Of course, in the structure, like with the frames and the knees, we tried to save as much as we could, but all in the planking here. And then the contrast with the new wood, the lighter stuff that you see in the wall, we did that on purpose so you could see the old and the new right next to each other. What's really cool about the new wood in this part of the ship is it all was saved, and in addition to the pieces of wood here that are brand new, in addition to the ones that are old, we also saved the old windows, the little leaded glass, which are here in the bulkhead, and they're also in other parts of the ship as well. So again, we tried to save as much as we possibly could, and where we could, we liked to show the contrast between that old and new.
I love this particular slide. This is the half deck on the ship, and I love the juxtaposition of the tools that you see here. Yeah. Because although we used power tools everywhere we could, big ship saws, the power planer and whatnot, all your mortise and tenon joints, we're still using the same tools to get the fine tuning down for the fit of the planes and the chisels, and there's still really no good way to do that, and the fairing with the planes. Yeah, there's the old belfry, and this just gives a little bit of an idea of how bad things got. And there's the new belfry. We actually cast that bell. The bell that was used in the original Mayflower project in 1957 was already a 350-year-old bell that was donated to the project by the Miles Bell Company in London, England. And we have that in our collection at the Maine campus, not on the ship. And this was a direct replica of that bell that we cast. And Matt, you can listen to this. We cast this as a development opportunity over a weekend. The Verdun Bell Company in Ohio has a foundry on wheels, and they came to our main campus. It was very memorable. We had kids and putting bronze into the crucible. We had adults putting father's medals from different wars or belt buckles and things like that to be melted and put into the bell for the next 300 years or however many. And that was really exciting and a memorable experience. This is the hold and the very lowest part of the keel and keelson. You can see a piece of the keelson's missing and been removed. The ship started out with 130 tons of iron ballast, internal ballast. There is no external ballast on Mayflower II. You can imagine what the iron looked like in a saltwater environment after 57 years. We took 4 tons of rust slag out with garden tools in 5-gallon buckets. It has since been replaced. We replaced all of the ballast with lead. Again, a non-ferrous material. Here's Noah and Tom there. This is a floor timber that goes across. It's about at least 400-pound piece of live oak. And I think they're sitting there thinking, how are we going to get this in place without crushing our toes? Long discussion there. Here's things moving along. Down lower, you can see again some of the older colored wood and some of the newer colored wood. New keelson going in. It still does have the original keel itself. And if that ain't the sexiest picture you've ever seen, I don't know what is. That is, shows a nice shape. This is another video here. We went with laminated masts for our new masts on the ship. As Dylan talked about, the old masts that were condemned, we were only rotten at the heel where they passed through the deck. Plenty of good wood on it, so we put it on a wood miser and reused it in other parts of the ship. And you can see throughout this process, 100% of the running and standing rigging was replaced. We did reuse some of the, these are martinets, some dead eyes used on the martinets. These are English elm that we were able to preserve and use. You'll see here later, we also built some new blocks. About 50% of the blocks are new and about 50% of the dead eyes are new. 100% of the line running and standing rigging are new. And here's some of the detail work. Don't look too close there, Jim. But Matthew Otto, master rigger down there at Mystic Seaport, did a great job. Just about 3 years rebuilding the rig. My bosun, who is now my bosun, Don Hemenitz, worked with Matthew for all 3 years. And before the project started, he could barely spell bosun. And today he are one. Here's some of the newer deadeyes that we replaced. This is Purple Heart. The original deadeyes, again, were English elm. And elm, as you know, with Dutch elm disease, a little hard to come by these days. So we use some Purple Heart. And all new deadeye straps. Here's another video, Scott Noseworthy and Dean Cedar at Mystic Seaport making the new deadeye straps. Here you can see the difference between the new ones and the old ones, just with the color difference. And amazingly enough, just now we're 6 years down the road, they all look the same color. You know, we use all of our different slush mixes and what we call bulwark mix with tar and wood guard and turpentine and all sorts of other toxic things in it. And they're all basically brownish black at this point and match each other. At this point in this building, the ship is on a cradle, so it's about 4 feet off the ground, but from the dirt to the top of the transom is 45 feet. Mayflower II draws 12.5 feet of water, and then it has about 12 or 15 feet back aft there with the high stern castle, quite a bit of freeboard as well as the 12.5 feet under the water. Got another video here of one of the planks coming out of the steam box. For this oak, we steam it for about 1 hour per inch of thickness. So this has been in the box for about 3.5 hours.
Now let's go aft.
And then they have about maybe 15, 20 minutes to get it hanging in place and clamped overnight, and then the next morning they fasten it in place.
Yep. All right.
About 70% of the ship is brand new. But again, the whole restoration following the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for historic preservation. And of course, in September of 2019, we rechristened the ship. The bottle that Harriet Cross is breaking across the stem is interesting to note. It's not champagne, but it does contain water from all 50 states of America, as well as water from England and water from Leiden in the Netherlands, where the Pilgrims left from. Big launch ceremony there in 2019. We had Nathaniel Philbrick as our signature speaker for that relaunch. On time. That's okay. So Mayflower II does not have any propulsion engines. This is our generator room. We do have we have a 21 kW generator for our fire suppression pumps and our bilge dewatering pumps. Lights, emergency lights, everything we needed. Mayflower II, even though it's a 284-ton ship, it is certificated as a Subchapter T passenger carrying vessel, which should make it under 100 tons. We had a letter from George H.W. Bush to Congress that allowed them to do that. So this is just some of the stuff that we needed for our COI. We do not have any watertight bulkheads, which I know is a big deal for you guys. Again, because of the nature of the ship, we were given a buy on that. The ship was also, it took an act of Congress to get its American flag because it was an English flag vessel. And this just shows some of the finished details here. I do have to point out, it's a very nice rose lashing up there, Jim Nelson. Right there in the mizzen stay. Haven't finished the stripes yet. A lot of people ask, and I don't know how you guys interpret the geometric patterns and the colors for your ship. For us, we interpret it as a way for a ship to be identified over a long distance of the water with no cell phones, no VHF. You could tell by the patterns and the colors that, oh yeah, there's Joe's ship. I wonder where he's going. There's Mayflower. Bending on the sails, we used Oceanus cloth. Anyone, is that what you guys have on Virginia?
No, it's similar to that, but it's actually imported from England because Oceanus doesn't make a tan bark.
I gotcha. And that was Dale Ward?
Clipper cloth.
Yes.
Clipper cloth.
Yeah.
Very nice. So for other people that don't know, Oceanus, it is a synthetic material. Originally it would have been a linen, or either a cotton or linen canvas type material. Today we all have to use synthetic. All of the running rigging at this point and standing rigging is synthetic. The shrouds were made special for us by New England Ropes. Each strand of the 3 strands and the 4 strands where we used it have Dyneema in each strand. So very, very low stretch. There's some of the work. Still a lot of hand work, a lot of machine work, but a lot of hand work. After the restoration, of course, we had to do our sea trials, and we're all wearing masks because, again, this is 2020, and I had 27 crew members on board for our Coast Guard sea trials and inspections. A little bit challenging for us all to be able to do that during COVID, but we did. We made it back in August of that year. Again, no propulsion engines, so tugboats to get us in and out of clear water before we can actually sail. This is the Mystic River down near Noank. Of course, anytime Mayflower goes out anywhere, there's quite a flotilla. They did some History Channel filming in 2014 before I arrived. They went out at like 5 o'clock in the morning in March and didn't tell anybody. Sea trials took place in Fisher Island Sound. That is Eagle in the background of that last shot there. Again, Coast Guard bark Eagle. We have a photo of the ship sailing with Eagle off Nantucket in 1957. When the ship first got here, there was not even a red stripe on Eagle yet at that time. And so it was really cool. I spoke with the XO and the CO, and we decided to meet out in Block Island Sound to kind of sail together. Here we are arriving back at Plymouth Harbor in August of 2020. That's all I got. But I really hope, again, thank you so much for inviting me up here, and I'm more than willing. Let's take some questions. Anybody?
I imagine this is a secret and you won't tell us.
Yeah.
But between the 1957 boat and the rebuild, did you make any changes that research has shown you in the last 75 years, or did you just exactly as it was built in 57?
So that's a good question. The simple answer to that is we made changes such as using bronze fasteners wherever we could. Anything we could do, we used more modern materials for the paying of the seams in the deck. We used modern polyurethanes and thiocol rather than pitch. The modern synthetic materials for the sails instead of hemp that the 57 ship had. As far as research into some of the ship itself, we purposely did not change some of the things. There was some very interesting ways they had the lifts set up because one of the things we were trying to do here, yes, there's been lots of new research with Mary Rose being found and with Vasa being found since Baker's original research, but we're trying to be true to Baker's idea as well, so that now we have the 1620 story, we have the 1957 story of the ship, and we have the 2020 story of the restoration of the ship. And so some of the things that we do maybe we should change to be more accurate in the 17th century, we purposely did not change to be true to the modern naval architect.
Maybe you could describe the tiller arrangement. I doubt that people understand that.
So Mayflower is one of 3 ships left in America that uses a whipstaff to steer. Whipstaff is a vertical piece of wood that then goes down a second deck to the tiller, and the tiller goes out to the rudder. So there's Kalmar Nickel, Susan Constant, and Mayflower II that still have a whipstaff. There was Half Moon had a whipstaff, but I think she's still over in the Netherlands or somewhere over there. I don't know where Half Moon is. Yeah, very interesting to be able to steer because, again, for the helmsman, you are down on the main deck in what we call steerage. You have a full bulkhead in front of you. You can't see anything, and there's a conning hatch above you, so the officers of the deck will give steering commands through that conning hatch, and you just have really a compass to go by. There is a couple of the doors to the bulkhead that you can see out of, and for experienced helmsmen, you can get an idea of what your bow is doing and how it's trending, but by and large, you're going by the compass. And the ship steers amazingly well, as you have probably found with your tiller, even with the whip staff. Not real difficult. If it gets difficult, it's because you haven't trimmed your sails right, and you have to make some adjustments. And you should not be fighting that whip staff. It's showing you that you're not trimming your ship correctly.
Even for docking, there's no assistance coming up to a wharf of some sort.
Well, of course, we have the tugboat.
See?
So
I knew there was something else.
So what is the helmsman looking out at in the little view that he does have?
Well, all you can see out to the beakhead, you can see the bowsprit. So if you're within sight of land or the waves, you can see what your bow is doing and how fast it is moving, or how slow if you've got it steady. You're able to just see the movement of the bow.
So he's lower than the level of the half deck?
Yes, he's underneath the half deck.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
As
Oh,
you
of course,
said,
of course, San Salvador. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I take that back. There's 4 now. Yeah.
Because I think in San Salvador, he's under the poop deck, and the helmsman does have limited vision.
It's
But
still
that's
pretty
fine.
limited vision. Yeah, I was just out there in February, and it's still pretty dicey. Yeah, for them, and that's a much smaller vessel. Mayflower, people ask how did we design Mayflower? How did William Avery Baker come up with the design? And what we did, one of the things we didn't change in the design brief, the tween deck you can actually stand up in. And we know that the tween deck on a 17th century merchant vessel like Mayflower would have probably been a foot lower. But knowing the intended purpose of the vessel after it was built, we didn't want the public, everyone to have to walk around like this. So that was one of the things that is not as authentic as it could be. The ship, of course, there were no blueprints to Mayflower. We knew that, or William Avery Baker knew, and we have the documentation that Mayflower was a ship of 180 tons burden. And if you've seen a 1-ton barrel, TUN or TONNE, it's very, very large barrel. Not quite as big as that screen right there. So he knew it could fit 180 of those, supposedly. And he knew that a 17th century vessel was going to have that high stern castle, it's going to have the high forecastle. He knew it would probably be bark rigged with the 6 sails that we have. And so he could extrapolate how long it would have to be, how wide it would have to be, and how deep it would have to be that 180-ton burden vessel.
Have you anchored the ship?
We have never anchored the ship in the time that I've been there since 2020. We've only sailed the ship 3 times since 2020. I will say the ship also, I'll mention that Alan Villiers, for any maritime folks, Alan Villiers was the master of the vessel sailing it from England to America in '57. And we sailed it for 28 days straight in 2020 and 6 or 7 days last year. Very much looking forward to seeing the people from Maine's first ship up in Boston. There might have to be some adult beverages exchanged.
I think that should be there. Water from the rivers and the beverages from the bottles. I think Captain will handle that responsibility. Any other questions for Whit? Yes, Rob.
I'm just curious, what kind of decking material did you use?
It's all Douglas fir.
It is different.
Yep. And we know in '57 a large load of Oregon pine was shipped to England for that project. In the 17th century, they probably would have used some sort of Baltic pine, Norway pine, Baltic pine.
Another question? Yes, Mitch.
Yeah, do you anticipate for it to last till 2080 or longer with some of these adjustments that you've made?
Yes. So that, yeah, so another 60 years, absolutely. And again, at the, as we develop long-term maintenance plans, we have of course, we have our daily list that always gets longer, not shorter. We have our monthly list, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, and certainly a good amount. They know already that, at the 30-year mark, there's going to be some good money needed to be spent. And at the 60-year mark, again, it's going to need, no matter how well you take care of them, it's an organic material, and we just do the best we can.
Was there any worm damage on the hull over the years?
The worm shoe did its job. So it has a sacrificial worm shoe on the bottom of the keel, and that's how we were still able to have the original keel in the ship, is the worms didn't get in there. But I still have a chunk in my office of that worm shoe that is just riddled. Riddled.
There was one other question, yes, sir.
So what is the keel wood material?
White oak, European Quercus robur.
What is your training program for your crew look like, your sailing crew?
Pretty in depth. We have a manual, with everything was spelled out. It was very gratifying for me. Of course, in 2020, I have a lot of professional colleagues that either volunteered. There's 4 of us in the Maritime Department that are in charge of maintenance and the sailing and the rigging of the ship. But whenever we sail it, I call on some professional friends, whether volunteer or paid, because some of them are paid. But last year, in August, and in 2020, in this August, we had 12 of our historical interpreters that could not spell boat 2 weeks before our Coast Guard inspection. So again, very important for passing along this knowledge from the experienced people. And as you know, it's not rocket science. It just takes some enthusiasm and confidence building, really. And I always joke, you saw the guys hauling lines there, I need strong backs and weak minds. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm delighted that you came up. I appreciate it so much. You give him a free hat, and I'm sure he'll be available. If people want to write to him later on, we'll have his. I can get an email to him. So if you got any more questions, just let me know, and we'll pass that on. But again, thank you very much.
Good luck with your season, everybody.
Good night. Good night, all.